Somehow.
The original uncut theatrical 1977 version of Star Wars
Returned.
Well, this is a good way to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of The Force Awakens, I suppose, but, yeah, I seriously cannot believe what I'm about to say, but Disney has officially announced that for the 50th anniversary of Star Wars, they are restoring and releasing the original 1977 cut for theaters. Holy shit. So George Lucas writes and directs the original Star Wars and releases it in 1977. Practical effects, puppets, silly costumes, it was a bona fide 70s space fantasy movie through and through. And it explodes in popularity. 2 sequels get made, The Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi, creating one of the most popular film trilogies ever. 1997 rolls around and it is now the 20th anniversary of the original film, so George Lucas, with all the money and resources in the world, has the idea to tinker with the original trilogy. He dubs these new versions as special editions, with CGI effects, an updated look, some dialogue changes. The films are still the same, but a frame here, a sequence there. It's a bit different. And some changes were pretty damn good. Other changes, it's like, what the fuck, why? Why was this added? But the main controversy came from the way that these films were advertised. George Lucas said that these new versions were going to be the definitive versions of the original trilogy, which is great and all, but certainly the original theatrical cuts will play a role and be released alongside them over the years, right? Right? It is December 2025 as I record this, and every VHS, Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, Disney Plus release has been altered in some way. The closest official release that you can get that matches the 1977 original theatrical cut is the limited edition 2006 DVD, with the theatrical crawls spliced in at the beginning. Not to mention that the rest of the DVD is a less than stellar Laserdisc transfer, so essentially these original films were being erased. In a world of streaming and 8K video quality, the best that Lucasfilm has offered us in the past several decades are just some low-quality DVDs. And that has been the story since 1977, truncated a little bit because I frankly don't want to be here all day. So back in October, I had a YouTube video recommended to me that seemed a bit too good to be true. Leaked clips of a restoration of the original 1977 cut. The original 20th Century Fox logo, the original land speeder effects going into Mos Eisley, the Wolfman in the Cantina, and the original effects that allowed the final showdown against the Death Star to shine back in 1977, the exact film that left audiences in awe nearly 50 years ago. And it looked legit. Not only did it look legit, but it kind of made sense. I mean, Disney was going to re-release Star Wars in 2027 either way. It was a no-brainer. I mean, how couldn't they? 50 years of what is perhaps the biggest film franchise in the history of the universe. But I remember seeing that initial announcement from Disney and telling my father, who watched the original film back in 1977, how stupid would it be if they put the Disney Plus version in theaters? Because if they were going to do that, then I would not be seeing the movie. I am not going to the theater and paying, whatever, like $8 for a movie ticket and a big thing of popcorn just to watch McClunky on screen.
Yes,
I bet you have.
McClunky.
If Disney were smart, I told him, if Disney were smart, they would restore all 3 original trilogy films at once and release it as one big 3-film theater event. 6-hour marathon, exclusive popcorn buckets, lightsabers, the whole 9 yards. You would be printing money if you released the original Star Wars trilogy for the first time in 50 years in that format. Printing money, putting asses in seats for that event. And sure enough, December 2025. Disney officially makes the announcement that the restoration of the 1977 cut of Star Wars is coming out in February 2027. Full quality, widespread theater release. And folks, of course, they have their opinions on that. If you ask me, this is the best possible move that Disney could make. I mean, this is something that should be celebrated, and I will elaborate on that more in a minute, but especially with those leaked clips I saw on YouTube, a lot of the comments that I was looking at were actually kind of negative. The main argument I kept seeing had to do with George Lucas and his wishes, the fact that George Lucas refused to release the original cuts after 1997 because the special editions were what he envisioned back in the day, but wasn't necessarily what he was able to do. Stuff like the Death Star battle, he wanted it to look a certain way. Lucasfilm would not even hand over an original print of the film to the Library of Congress. George Lucas has always been very anal about the release of Star Wars. And people are saying that it's disrespectful to release the films in this fashion. And not only that, but the argument has been made that the original cuts are really not all that different from the special editions. You know, the story beats are the same, the acting is the same, the overall just movie is essentially the same, and I completely get all of those points. You know, George Lucas to me has sort of been a mythical figure growing up. I've always loved his stories and his rise to fame. Star Wars introduced me to the possibilities of a big fantasy world. Indiana Jones is my favorite film franchise of all time, with just endless rewatchability, and I even love a film like American Graffiti that makes me feel nostalgic for a time period that I've never even experienced. Even his old college films I have watched and I've taken a little bit of inspiration from in my own sort of filmmaking journey, if you want to call it. I'm not a filmmaker, I don't know why I called it that. That being said though, Star Wars is not exclusively George Lucas's movie. Did he create the universe? Yes. Did he write the original trilogy? Well, he wrote the first one and had a heavy hand in the other two. Did he direct all three original trilogy movies? You know, again, he directed the first one and had a heavy hand in the other two. So, essentially, yes. Star Wars, at the end of the day, I guess if you had to credit it to one person, it would be George Lucas. But did he create the special effects? Did he design the costumes? Did he design just the look of the worlds? Did he edit the movie? Did he make the sound effects? No. The auteur? Yes. The all-encompassing trump card that made Star Wars as big as it was? No. You know, if you guys do your research, the original cut of Star Wars was kind of a disaster, and ILM deserves a ton of credit for their work on these movies. Star Wars is not exclusively George Lucas's movie. It is his movie, but it's also ILM's movie, it's Mark Hamill's movie, it's Marsha Lucas's movie, and most importantly, it is our movie as well. You know, it's been 50 years. I feel as though the fans should have a say in how this film is released. It's really not fair to say to the fans that the only way to experience the original cut of Star Wars is just to hunt down some really old VHS quality, well, VHS tapes, you know? So that begs the question of, why do I care so much? The people who say the special editions aren't even all that different, they're not wrong exactly. The movies are fundamentally the same, but what's the big idea with it? Well, for me, it's two things. It's film history and generational preservation. Those are the two big pieces, and I just think that Star Wars is truly film history. There are movies that are over a century old at this point that have been lost to time, just full pieces of art that countless people poured a lot of time, money, and energy into, and that inspired people to make their own movies. A lot of them are just lost now. They've been destroyed. And because of George Lucas's insistence that the original cuts not be released, it's sort of forcing the original cuts of Star Wars to be this weird form of just lost media, which if you have the power to not do that, then why do it, you know? Why censor a film like Star Wars that made such a worldwide impact? Not only that, but why can't the original cuts and the special editions live in harmony together? You know, the special editions are not all awful. There are some smart changes in there. Watching the special editions alongside the prequel trilogy makes it a more cohesive experience, but why can't they do it like what Star Trek did with the original series and put the classic edition and the remastered edition on the same disc? With Lucasfilm, it's like, nope, I can't do it. It's just like, why? And it's so stupid to be complaining about this, especially now that there's been official confirmation that we are getting a release of the original cut in some way. But, damn, man, like, my entire lifetime to experience the original Star Wars, I've had to dig up my dad's old VHS tapes, which brings me to my second point of generational preservation. A lot of my friends are Star Wars fans, which is a big shocker to the audience, I'm sure. But, yeah, all of my friends, I'm sure even people my age, if I pulled them off the street and asked them if they have seen the original Star Wars cut, they would probably say no. I bet that many of them probably aren't even aware that the versions of the movies that they grew up with have been heavily remastered in some way. The way that I first experienced Star Wars as a kid was this 2004, DVD release, and I didn't know at the time, as like a 4-year-old, that this was a heavily remastered version of the original movie that came out in 1977. It wasn't until I hopped on the internet for the very first time and watched the YouTuber Hello Greedo, who gave me the sort of crash course of the special editions and the changes and just the absurdness of not releasing them in tandem with the special editions. I'm willing to bet that most people born after the year, let's just say 1995, have not experienced the original cuts of Star Wars, Empire, or Jedi. Entire generations have missed out on the original movies that sort of defined the current era of filmmaking. And the people like my father, who saw the original film back in 1977, they don't have an easy way to access a high-quality version of the movie that they remember. I know that fan-led projects like 4K77 exist, but 4K77 shouldn't have to exist. They should have just restored the original versions in 1997 and released it alongside the special editions. A fan project like 4K77 is highly impressive, but ethically, it shouldn't have even existed in the first place. And also the file size for each of the movies that have been restored by fans, it's like 50 to 100 gigabytes, so that's not exactly feasible for the average person. And just to add some more counter-arguments with this, people say that the original effects are outdated. Well, the CGI ones are too. Like, I don't know what, point they're trying to make with that. It's like, 1 minute you're watching humans dressed up as robots walking around a desert, and then there's just a giant CGI slug in the middle of the screen. Star Wars is a 1977 pop culture phenomenon, which I don't think people remember that. Star Wars now is a film franchise, but back 50 years ago, it was just one movie. Whenever I pop in an original VHS tape of the original cut of Star Wars, I am transcended into the frame of mind of an original audience member. This movie was made in 1977. I can see the way that the puppets are moving. I can see the wire that makes the lightsaber work. I can see the plain English on the Death Star tractor beam. I can see the way the physical X-Wing models are moving in space. And erasing this stuff under the guise of improving the films, I just don't get it. People are arguing that it's disrespectful to George Lucas to restore and re-release the original movies, but what about ILM, the team that put all the special effects together? Isn't that disrespectful to them to erase the original movies and just bury them? It's just simply not fair to bar the release of a movie because one man desires it. It's been 50 years since the original 1977 cut hit theaters, and it's been, 30 years since the special editions came out? I think I speak for everyone when I say it's been long enough. Give us the original cut in theaters, give it to us on streaming, but most importantly, give it to us on 4K Blu-ray, give it to us on regular Blu-ray, give it to us on DVD, give it to us again on VHS, give it to us on Laserdisc, CED, Betamax, give us audio-only versions on Spotify, on CD, vinyl, cassette, 8-track, I don't care. Just give us the original cut of Star Wars. And the fans' prayers have been answered, and those are just my thoughts on the whole debacle. And of course, you know, when a good thing happens and people have to bitch about it, so naturally I feel inclined to make a video stating my point, but I welcome any sort of counter-arguments or just general discussion in the comments. But as one final point, Lucasfilm created The Rise of Skywalker, so I really don't think that they care about George Lucas, his story, his legacy. I don't really think they care about that too much. At least with this, they are doing a justice for film history and for the fans. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in 2027 whenever we all see the original Star Wars in theaters. For me, for the first time.